Hello everyone, Namaskar, कैसे हैं आप लोग? Welcome back to India Voice Fest 2020, the online edition, produced and organized by Sugar Mediaz, conceived and curated by yours truly. Our main sponsors, Sound and Vision India, associate sponsors, Audiomagick, Mayukhi In Sync, Kambay Studioss and Mad Over Masala. दोस्तों, आज तीसरा दिन है इस हफ्ते भर के महाकुंभ का। महाकुंभ इसलिए क्योंकि जैसे कुंभ मेले में पूरे देश से लोग आते हैं, उसी तरह इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट एक ऐसा कुंभ है जहां पूरे देश से वॉइस ओवर आर्टिस्ट और वॉइस एक्टिंग के एंथुजियास्ट आते हैं। मैंने आपको बताया था इस बार 4,500 लोगों ने रजिस्टर किया है इस इवेंट के लिए। एक ऐतिहासिक बात है। जब से शायद ये वॉइस इंडस्ट्री शुरू हुई है इंडिया में, तब से ऐसा कोई मंच नहीं बना है जहां पर हजारों लोग, हमारे दिग्गज कलाकारों से लेकर नौजवान एस्पायरिंग वॉइस आर्टिस्ट, हर कोई जुड़ चुका है। तो ये एक बहुत ही कमाल का इनिशिएटिव है जिसको सफल बनाया है आपने और आपने, यानी हम सब ने। थैंक यू एवरीवन फॉर मेकिंग इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट सच एन इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ योर लाइफ। और अगला जो सेशन है वो बड़ा ही प्यारा, बड़ा ही अनोखा सेशन है। इट इज कॉल्ड द A to Z ऑफ पॉडकास्ट। आप में से कुछ लोग पूछेंगे ये पॉडकास्ट क्या होता है। आई एम श्योर बहुत कम ऐसे लोग होंगे, क्योंकि ज्यादातर लोग आज जानते हैं पॉडकास्ट क्या होता है। पॉडकास्ट एक बहुत ही गजब का एवेन्यू है। ऑडियो एंटरटेनमेंट, इंफॉर्मेशन, नॉलेज, लर्निंग, जो भी कहिए, बेसिकली वॉइस ओवर आर्टिस्ट के लिए या वॉइस एक्टिंग एंथुजियास्ट के लिए पॉडकास्ट एक उभरता हुआ एवेन्यू है। और आने वाले समय में ये एक बहुत ही मजबूत एवेन्यू बनकर आएगा। तो हमने बात की छवि सचदेव से, हमने उनसे रिक्वेस्ट किया कि वो आएं और हमसे साझा करें पॉडकास्टिंग का A to Z। और छवि सचदेव जो हैं वो इंडिया की लीडिंग पॉडकास्टर, ट्रेनर और कंसल्टेंट हैं। 2008 से वो पॉडकास्टिंग कर रही हैं, तब से जब ज्यादातर हम में से ज्यादातर लोगों को पता ही नहीं था कि पॉडकास्ट शब्द का अर्थ क्या होता है। और उनसे बात करने के लिए उनके साथ हैं हेमांग शर्मा, जो हमारे बहुत अच्छे मित्र हैं, शुगर मीडियाज फैमिली का हिस्सा हैं, खुद एक प्रख्यात रेडियो प्रेजेंटर रह चुके हैं, आजकल ट्रेनिंग करते हैं, पॉडकास्टर हैं और वॉइस आर्टिस्ट हैं, और हमारे दिल के टुकड़े हैं। तो चलिए 1 मिनट में हम लौट कर आते हैं हेमांग और छवि के साथ। इंतजार करिए, सिट बैक, रिलैक्स, ग्रैब योर चाय, कॉफी और whatever you like to have at this hour of the day. If you don't have an India Voice Fest mug, go to indiavoicefest.com and order your India Voice Fest merchandise. We will be right back in just a minute.
Awesome. And here we go. It's time for us to take a nice journey into podcasting and more. Welcome on screen and to the India Voice Fest. Here we have the one and only Chhavi Sachdev. Hi there.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Well, your introduction and more about you has been just shared by Sarji, as I call him with a lot of love, Darrpan Mehta. And now that we should look, I feel like we should just dive into the subject to make the most of the time that we have.
Let's do it. I love talking about podcasting.
Same here. I love listening about podcasting. It's mutual, I guess, isn't it? Podcasting. Well, the word everybody is aware of, and you have an idea. Some people have a vague idea. Some people are like, pata hai, magar sure nahi hai ki what are we talking about? Or how does it really function? Or what is the whole gamut of things? So getting into the basics and then the details, what is podcasting? If I would ask you on a very simpler version, how would we be able to put that?
So when I explain it to aunties at a party, I'm not implying at all to anybody here is an auntie at a party. I'm a party on. What I tell them is it's like audio for your ears, just like Netflix is for TV. This is audio for you on a phone or a computer that you can listen to anywhere, anytime by just logging in whenever you have the internet. So that's how I tell them. And I tell them there's comedy, there's spirituality. If you're talking to an auntie, you should mention these things. Yoga, along with, of course, horror and stories, as well as history and whatever you want to listen to.
Exactly. So we can say as simple as that. It's something for you to listen to while you're doing whatever you want, so that you are not like locked down or captive by screens as we generally experience. But audio keeps you free to move around, do your things, and at the same time consume valuable content, which you can also choose to pick.
You are speaking my language. Statistics also tell us that most people listened to podcasts generally when they're commuting. And of course, in the pandemic, this took a hit, and everybody was concerned that now people are not listening because they're not in cars or trains or buses as much. But podcasts clearly are here to. The numbers picked right back up. People found different times to consume them, and of course, it is one of the things you can do while you're doing something else. So you can exercise, you can do jhadu, pocha, bartan, vegetables, kapde sukhana, and also keep your mind engaged.
ये हुई ना बात जो आपने मुद्दे की बात कही, बर्तन झाड़ू पोछा, which is like a part of our daily life nowadays, but उसमें भी पॉडकास्ट हो सकते हैं ताकि आप ये सीखें कि बर्तन अच्छी तरह से कैसे धोएं,
या
you know?
किसी और चीज के बारे में सोचें ताकि you can forget what drudgery you're doing.
I guess that's a very escape route out there, isn't it? तो चलिए हम ये तो समझ गए हैं और हम आपके सबके साथ ये भी शेयर कर चुके हैं कि हम बेसिकली ऑडियो कंटेंट को कंज्यूम करेंगे, मगर ये अपने आप में एक जरिया बन गया है, एक प्लेटफॉर्म बन गया है, एक एस्पेक्ट आ गया है जिंदगी में जहां पे क्रिएटिव लोग या जानकार लोग अपनी जानकारी शेयर कर सकते हैं, क्रिएटिव लोग अपनी क्रिएटिविटी शेयर कर सकते हैं फॉर द बेनिफिट ऑफ मैनकाइंड एंड आल्सो योरसेल्फ, व्हिच वी विल कम टू लेटर. बट नाउ when I get into the nitty-gritties of podcasting and I'm like, suppose let's start with, जब मैंने भी शुरू किया था podcasting, I was like क्या करूं, I was वेला फुर्सत थी बहुत सारी, and I have the creative juices running, so I am just speaking on behalf of everybody who wants to get into a podcast at this point of time, maybe a student or maybe a professional from another field altogether. हम अगर सोचे कि हमें पॉडकास्ट करना है तो सबसे पहला कदम हमें क्या क्लियर हो जाना चाहिए बिफोर वी गेट इनटू द टेक्निकल और द टेक्नोलॉजिकल पार्ट? सबसे पहला
कदम is I think quite obvious. If you zoom out and look at it, you want to have something to say. Yes, you have a golden voice, but just having the voice is not enough. Your idea has to be something that people want to listen to. So a lot of people think of podcast as like a blog कि मैं खुद के बारे में बात करूंगा, मैंने खिड़की खोली, सूरज सुंदर दिख रहा. What? No, does anybody really want to hear that? Maybe mummy, maybe, and
maybe,
cousin, yeah. I don't know.
There's audience for everything. Yeah.
Have a plan, and also have, I think, a trusted group of people who can tell you, are you crazy? Ye kaun sunega? And then come up with a plan, come up with content, come up with execution, figure out a format, figure out a duration. Do you have something to say for 7 minutes a day, every day? Do you have something to say for 45 minutes twice a month, and that's all your schedule, your time, your resources can allow for? I mean, what are you doing and why? And then how are you going to do it? Really take some time, make a list. I love lists. Make a list. I have worksheets I give out, think through why you're doing, who you're addressing, and then find out, has somebody already done it? Because if they have, what are you bringing to this topic? Which doesn't mean you can't. I mean, look at your newspapers. Every newspaper has a movie review. Every TV station has a movie review. Doesn't mean there's no room for a new movie review, but everybody's got an angle, and you have to figure out your voice, not just your avaz, but what are you about? What unique? You'd ask me, bolo?
नहीं मुद्दे की बात थी, इसलिए मैं सोचा एक बार हिंदी में भी बता दूं कि जब वो कह रही है कि अपनी वॉइस पहचाने, वो कह रही है कि अपनी आवाज, जो फिजिकल आवाज है वो तो एक पहलू है, पर आप क्या कहना चाहते हैं, आपके बात में क्या मैसेज है या क्या इजाफा करेंगे आप लोगों की जानकारी में, वो होना चाहिए क्लियर.
आपका एंगल क्या है कि आप उसमें क्या ला रहे हैं जो सिर्फ आप ला सकते हैं, क्या आपकी
बिल्कुल
एक्सपीरियंस है, क्या एंगल है, क्या वॉइस है. और हेमांग said and दर्पण, A to Z. मैं सोच रही थी कि 26 थिंग्स तो मैं शायद नहीं कर सकूंगी. ए में मुझको पता चला कि आई कैन से the A of podcasting is authenticity.
oh,
You
wow.
have to be yourself. So don't use your RJ voice. Don't
जी
use your, hi, I'm Chhavi. I'm going to
हम्म,
talk to you about podcasting. After 5 minutes, nobody's going to want to listen to that. Be authentic. So I
true
think
that.
these are things you have to look at. And then other things you have to look at are like the logistics. You're going to need something to record on, equipment. So mic.
Pause. Sorry to interrupt. The ones who are sitting and listening to this, they are noting it down. So I'm also suggesting, guys, keep noting down these points, because each point has a, like, there's lots more in that point. We are trying to touch every aspect so that we go through it as much detail as possible. So first things first, be yourself. Authenticity is very vital. और उसमें performance करने की जरूरत नहीं है. ये मैं note down कर लूँ. ये तो हो गया. अब नोट डाउन कर लो. मैंने ये डिसाइड कर लिया मुझे क्या बोलना है. थैंक्स छवि, दैट रियली हेल्प्स.
B.
नाउ आई
क्या बोलना
डिसाइडेड.
है?
हाँ, क्या बोलना है. और और उसके बाद ये भी क्लियर हो गया कि मैं वैसे ही बोलूंगा जैसा मैं बोलता हूँ. आई डोंट हैव टू बी समबडी एल्स. ऑसम. लाइक कई बार लोगों का ट्यून ऑफ हो गया है. खास करके हम जब रेडियो का काम करते थे, तो जब ऑडिशंस होते थे और आरजेस को बुलाया जाता था, तो रेडियो या पॉडकास्ट, अगर हम बात करें आवाज की, तो इंसान में वो एक खास नेचुरल इंस्टिंक्ट रहता है कि जब कोई बंदा नॉर्मली बात कर रहा है, नेचुरली बात कर रहा है, तो सुनते भी हैं. बट कुछ अगर रियल नहीं हुआ ना, तो पता नहीं क्यों नेचुरली ट्यून ऑफ हो जाता है. सो इफ यू वांट टू अवॉइड दैट, ये तो बात नोट हो गई. मगर so yeah, I had a question. You also mentioned in the previous few sentences कि हमें फॉर्मेट भी डिसाइड करना होगा, ड्यूरेशन भी डिसाइड. तो ऐसा करते एक एक पहलू पे जाते हैं, so that I know what you mean by format, so that I know what you mean by
Absolutely.
duration.
But I want to go back to the B, which is क्या बोलना है. So,
जी.
why you tune out when you're listening to an RJ voice as opposed to
हाँ.
your, it's a balance issue. कि कोई आपसे, in English say we're talking at someone rather than talking to someone. A podcast is listened to very differently than radio. Radio आप generally गाड़ी में सुनते हो, ये सबके लिए है. अगर ट्रेन में भी सुन रहे हो तो बहुत सारे लोग सुन रहे हैं. मम्मी, पापा, मौसी, जो खाना बेचती है, जो फल बेचती है, और जो इस्त्री करता है, सब वही लिसन कर रहे हैं. पॉडकास्ट थोड़ा सिलेक्टिव है. एंड ऑल्सो सिर्फ आप लिसन कर रहे हो, आप सुन रहे हो जब आप सुन रहे हो. इट्स वेरी इंटिमेट. सिर्फ आपसे बात हो रही है.
One to one,
So,
personal.
one to one, and who will you trust? Somebody who's talking at you or somebody who's talking to you? So you
Right.
have to drop the performance. And it's a big difference. One difference between a podcast and radio, I always say, radio has a presenter,
Yeah.
but a podcast has a host. Now think of the word host. Host मतलब क्या?
होस्ट मतलब जो आपको एंटरटेन करे, ऐसे.
हाँ, और जो आप किसी के घर जाते हो, आप मेहमान बनते हो. जो
बराबर.
होस्ट आपको अंदर बुलाता है,
जी.
पानी, खाना, कुछ पेश करता है.
ऑफर करता है.
The host is showing you something through his eyes, letting you in. A presenter is just, it's like a different level, ऊपर से नीचे. So
वो दूसरे घर की खिड़की दिखाता है प्रेजेंट. वो देखो वहां पर वो हो रहा है, वो खिड़की के
कितना
अंदर.
शानदार है. हाँ, वो देखो ताजमहल. So that, okay. So let's come back to format. And I wish I could put them in A, B, C, D, but ऐसा हुआ नहीं मेरे से.
वो नहीं हो सकता. It's okay. We go, as and when the questions come in. By the way, जो सुन रहे हैं उनको ये भी बता दें, अगर आपके कोई सवाल है तो आप डेफिनेटली वहां सवाल लिखकर छोड़ दें. तो जैसे ही समय आएगा, अगर आपके सवाल का जवाब नहीं हुआ हो, तो हम उसे एड्रेस कर लेंगे.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Let's take it further.
okay. So in terms of format, there are many ways you can present what you want to say. So the first format is monologue. ये सब आप जानते हो. It's when you just talk. It's very good for topics जिसमें you're giving ज्ञान, you're sharing something personal, कहानी सुना रहे हो, या फिर spirituality, astrology. ऐसी जैसी podcasts है ना, you don't need too many people. Or finance advice, top 5 ways to invest your money. Kuch bhi. You just need one voice, monologue. ठीक है? Format number 1. Format number 2 is dialogue. दो लोग बात कर रहे हैं. This could be a chat, and a chat is matlab you're equal. Like right now, we are having, I would say, more of a chat than an interview. Right? Bringing something.
To give an example. I'm on the absorbing end, so any which ways, continue.
But you have experience, you have good questions, and we're really having a conversation.
Very much.
Part 2B, dialogue part 2 is interview, and this is much more like what you see on a TV or आप इसके बारे में क्या कहते हैं? Like one person is an expert and is just the interviewer is just asking questions. Okay, what is next? What is the meaning of this? इसके बाद क्या करें? इसका मतलब क्या है? Okay, top 5 things बोलिए. Rapid fire essay. So that's interview a little more formal. You know, the setup is more formal. So those are 2 kinds of ways of doing a dialogue. The third way of doing it is if there are more than 3 voices, or 3 voices or more. So again, like a panel. Now, if Darpan, Hanji?
Nothing, like trialogue, I was calling it.
Trialogue. So if Sergi joined us, this would be a chat, a fireside chat. If we had a panel, that would mean one person is moderating, like, a little more formal again. So for example, Hemang would say, Chhavi, what do you think about the whatever? And okay, that's a good point. Darpan, what do you think about this? And then, okay, now moving on to the next question. What is your opinion? What do you think the impact will be? So you are in charge and you are directing. Now A, now B, now C. Okay, it can be 3 people, it can be 4 people. So that's another option. My favorite is multiple people when it's what we call a feature. And that means it's scripted, and it's usually, it can be in 2 ways. Sorry if I'm getting super technical. Obviously, I love to talk about podcasts. Okay, so
we're noting this. Yeah, it helps.
So now it can be non-fiction, which is something I specialize in, where you've done many interviews, and then when you come back, I'll give you some examples, okay? So you can listen to them. For example, a podcast called "People Fixing the World," or a podcast called "Crowd Science." So there's a host, but there are multiple voices coming in and they tell you the story. Like, so for example, there is an environmental problem. You've talked to the villager, you've talked to the NGO, you've talked to the government. Unki sari, their voices come. It's like a documentary.
Yeah, okay.
In audio. And you have sound. Ki pani ka sound, hawa ka sound, panchayat meeting ka sound, gai chal rahi hai, uska sound. And it's like immersive. And the same thing can be flipped to be fiction, and that's where you guys come in. So, should I play you some examples of my favorites?
Yes, we're all ears.
Okay.
Let's
give me a second to just get this going.
Very much.
Kidhar hai? Application window. Okay, here we go. I have many lined up. So I'll play you one of the most original. This is from 1949. By the way, India has a very rich history of radio dramas. And these same radio dramas are now the hottest ticket in podcasting. So you guys, there is space. There is space for you. Okay, let me play this. It's called Dragnet.
Ladies and gentlemen, the story you are about to hear is true.
Can you hear?
It paused. It paused.
Can you hear? Okay, let me see. Unmute screen audio. Yes. Sorry for the technical stuff, guys.
Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent. NBC brings you Dragnet. you're assigned to homicide. A mad killer is loose in the city. In every instance, he leaves the murder weapon behind. There are no fingerprints, no clues to the killer's identity. Your job, get him. Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime, investigated and solved by the men.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
All right. I couldn't hear it, but I hope you could hear it.
There was a little static in the same, but what I could hear and grasp from the same was like I suddenly remembered the time of Superman, and we used to hear this kind of audio back then, and giant
We had
robots.
so much good audio. So this show, Dragnet, actually turned into a TV show, and they found that people were actually walking around and doing stuff because they could hear it so well and follow along with it in their own minds that it was just like radio on a different device. So it's a detective procedural, and I feel like you guys, if you wanna do a Bamkesh Mukherjee, is that his name, or something like that,
Yeah.
and make your own. Please look at copyright issues. Don't just start doing something. There's a huge appetite in our country for stories. We are massively into stories, right? It's our tradition. Okay, I'll play you a couple more. And, okay. 1 second. Again, I hope I can hear it because I don't know how much to play. I'm just andaze se doing something. Okay, this is called Truman Bay. And there's a friend of mine who is Indian, who's part of the production. This is a BBC production, and it is just fascinating. Oh, sorry. कुछ नहीं हो रहा. Hi, internet problems.
What's that?
It's buffering.
Well, you can tell me all about it after you've had your breakfast.
Don't go, Papa.
Be good and obey your mother. There are moments in life I call beginnings, when everything you've come to expect changes. You hardly ever recognize them until it's too late. And then there's nothing you can do about it. Observe a man who loves his family. He leaves his home, leaves his wife and child, and goes to the palace where he works. And he thinks he will do a day's work, and then come home. The Sultan will receive you. Lead the way. Gifts are usually handed to the servants to be presented later. What? It avoids any awkwardness. I presume that is a gift for the Sultan. You know who I am? Of course. It's just then I will keep it with me. Simply, please. This way. This is the Menagerie. An oryx calf was born 2 days ago. The hall of mirrors, the Sultan designed it himself. The gold room. We must wait here. Sit. When the time comes, the doors will open.
bus. There's
Bas.
3 seasons of this addictive stuff. Matlab, sunte hi jao, and they're 1 hour each. It's so. Somebody asked if this could be one. I'll definitely put the links in the chat for you. Or links, matlab, you can search and find them.
Yeah.
Second, this is in talks to become a TV. There's already a book. So there is, like I'm telling you, there's a type of stories that is unparalleled. Have you heard of the Netflix show Homecoming? It had Julia Roberts in it.
Yeah. Heard of that. So
Homecoming
Can you hear me?
started as a podcast.
What are you saying?
Homecoming
That's news.
podcast, and Netflix optioned it to be a TV show starring Julia Roberts and I don't know who else. So it's not impossible to dream big things with narrative fiction podcasts. So those are narrative non-fiction podcasts, which I told you, which we call features, and narrative fiction
Yes.
podcasts are my absolute favorite. So I'll give you a bunch of different ones you can listen to that I've enjoyed. There are so many out there. So
That's what I'm
there's
only wondering,
many.
at this point of time, if we start listening, we just keep absorbing so much. It's a theater of mind altogether.
And
There are questions pouring
you
in.
must listen. I see that.
Yeah.
You must listen because it's the best way to be a good producer of good content. Get to know what's
True
out
that.
there, and then you can set the benchmarks. Okay, duration and frequency. I saw those questions in the chat, so those were the next I was going to talk about. Is
Yes.
there a perfect duration for a podcast? Nahi. The perfect duration for a podcast is what have you got to say, and what is the perfect time to keep it in. And can you be a good editor of yourself? ऐसे please बहस मत करना, किसी के पास time नहीं है. There is YouTube, there is Netflix, there is thousands of other things to choose from. आपको कोई क्यों सुने? Get absolutely tight. So if you have 5 minutes of things to say, keep it 5 minutes. If you have 50 minutes, keep it 50 minutes or break it up. There's no wrong answer. And for frequency, you must try to do one twice a month, every 2 weeks. I know, Hemang, you have not been a good scheduling boy. You know?
I've been very irregular in putting up podcasts. But in my case, it's about creativity. Poem is something you have to wait for the flow to happen.
So
My very
what
first podcast was, does poetry happen to you or you happen to poetry? Because that's what happens. So yeah, no explanation on my podcast as of now. But yeah,
so there's no wrong way of doing it. But
Yeah.
in order to stay current, because you know how people listen is on a podcast app. The podcast app will stop refreshing if you
Yes.
don't update for 2 weeks. फिर भूल जाएंगे लोग. फिर
Hmm.
top of mind नहीं रहेगा, top of list भी नहीं रहेगा. फिर
Right.
you lose listeners. So to
Yes.
keep it currently refreshing, you have to do it twice a month, every 2 weeks. उससे ज़्यादा नहीं. So if you've got creativity, keep it. Just keep them. Make the episodes and keep them. Don't release them.
Okay.
फिर जब 12 हो जाए या 6 हो जाए, फिर थोड़ा-थोड़ा करके release कर दो. Schedule them.
Right. Very important point.
We're going to talk about hosting, so we can talk about that also if you want now.
Yes. Right away, just go with your flow. I just want us to get the most of it.
So first we talked about content. You decide format. You figure out what you want to say. क्या बोलना है, कैसे बोलना है. What format are you? फिर कितनी दफा, how frequent, how long. उसके बाद recording. Recording के लिए you need a mic. You have to have a mic. ऐसे computer से बात मत करना, because that mic has got it's very technical, but it's too broad. You want a good mic. And I have a list on my website if you search, or we can send a link somewhere. And
let me mention the name before it passes by during the conversation. Sonolog is where you got to go to look it up. Well, we'll definitely share it in the link in the chat as well very soon.
There's a question about refreshing. So the podcast host puts it out into everybody's. You have say, I have put out a podcast. Hemang has subscribed to it. Okay? But he subscribed to 10 other podcasts. So जितने new episodes आएंगे, वो Hemang के phone पे आ जाएंगे. अगर मैंने रिफ्रेश नहीं किया 2 हफ्ते तक, मेरा तो 10 नंबर पे तो बेरी हो जाएगा, आपकी स्क्रीन पे दिखेगा नहीं, और फिर 2 हफ्ते हो गए तो ऑटोमेटिक, by that time Hemang has forgotten about me, and maybe he'll remember me in 3 months. He'll go to the bottom and then he'll say, "Acha, itne sare episode ho gaye." So it's a bad situation. If you put
Yes.
it will refresh automatically. And
Correct.
audiobook is not the same as a podcast, because an audiobook is a book that's read out. Podcast is everything else. And some podcasts are based on books, but you'll have to get copyright permission, etc., etc. वो audible को करने दो.
That's different ballgame altogether. But looking at the questions coming up, and it's been 32 minutes since we've been live. Our time is like, it's been 32 minutes already, and we have approximately 15 to 20 minutes more.
Okay, quickly then.
Yeah. I'll ask the question, and you're going to take it further.
I was going to talk about equipment and hosting.
I'm going to talk about monetization, जिसमें सब लोग को इंतजार है. तो आते हैं उस पे, please, we need to know about the equipment, because without all that, we just can't monetize nothing, you know.
So, okay, एक चीज मैं दिखा देती हूँ. Please excuse me for not having it within hand's reach. You don't need very fancy equipment. You can record into your computer, but you have to have a mic. This is non-negotiable. Mics 3,000 के मिलते हैं. See, with any kind of hardware, what you pay for is what you get. If you pay for cheap mal, you will get. So 200 रुपए का mic मत लेना, please. So 3,000 से 6,000, you can get a very good USB mic to put into your computer, and you can record onto good software. That is essential. And you need headphones so that you can hear yourself when you record. Okay, this is also non-negotiable. If you come to my workshops, I usually threaten people that I will tapko during your recording and I will beat you with a stick. Very bad, no? If I find
in this case, at least majority you don't have to worry about, because most of them are voice artists, so they will definitely take care of the mic and the earphones or the headphones and a foldback. So that's, I'm sure, the basics would be in place.
I also do I do a lot of features. I go into the field. I take those interviews. So I have a digital recorder, and this records in WAV file, not MP3. And this is why it costs money. It's got a great sound card. It's got 2 mics. I have a windsock for it as well, and I have an external. So, but in a pinch, this is something you can get as well and record into it. And it's portable, so you can go into your makeshift recording studio, whether that's your cupboard or under your bed or wherever you're recording, and you can take more easily than your whole computer setup.
For the uninitiated, you can definitely look up voice recorders. Tascam is what Chhavi just showed. We also have in Zoom, H1Ns and H1.4s. You know, they're also doing a pretty good, decent output. So Zoom and Tascam, these are the 2 companies where you can look up voice recorders that we all can vouch for. Most of the artists, I'm sure, are aware of that.
I'm sure. And finally, for a platform. Now, once you've recorded everything, you've edited it, please edit it. Don't ever just put something out, because we're usually not as amazing as we think we are. And so you want to put it on a platform, and that's called your hosting platform. So there are a bunch of places you can go. Spotify is one, Anchor is one. These are free, and then there are paid ones. Okay, lost. Can you guys hear me?
आई थिंक कुछ टेक्निकल गड़बड़ी की वजह से ये निकल गए. मैं लेकर आता हूँ इनको वापस, कोई चिंता की बात नहीं है. ये देखिए, हम लेकर आए हैं छवि को हम लेकर आ गए हैं, और अब हम लेकर आते हैं हेमांग को. तो छवि और हेमांग का आई थिंक स्ट्रीम थोड़ा सा नेट कुछ गड़बड़ लग रहा है. छवि,
Okay. I couldn't tell
हेमांग,
you.
ये आप अंधेरे में कहाँ, अंधेरी रात में कहाँ जा रहे हो आप? अभी तक तो रोशनी में थे पूरे. Okay, I think Chhavi, Hemang's net.
As long as you can still hear me, I can carry on.
Yeah, we can hear you. So Chhavi, let me just fill in for Hemang. I will obviously not be able to do half the job as well as Hemang does, but let me ask you something on point. कुछ लोग पूछ रहे हैं कि प्लेटफॉर्म्स, अगर आप 2-3 प्लेटफॉर्म्स बताएं ऐसे फ्री प्लेटफॉर्म्स जहाँ पर
That's where I got.
Am I audible?
So,
Yes.
Yeah.
so for platforms, there are a few free platforms. Echoing some. Okay. So Spotify and Anchor are definitely free. And there's also a couple of Indian companies that will host you.
SoundCloud, would you put SoundCloud also up there?
I would not. And SoundCloud is free only up to 2 hours. And SoundCloud is not a good tool for discovery. People don't go to SoundCloud to look for podcasts. They go for music and to also put a portfolio link to share with people.
Correct.
So these are the free ones.
However,
I would still caution you to read the fine print. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Free Facebook देख लो, जो भी देख लो, free में कुछ ले रहे हो तो उनको आपका क्या मिल रहा है?
If you're not paying for a service, you are the product.
Precisely. So if you're actually getting into this seriously, you're not just trying it, you're not just experimenting. थोड़ा experiment करना है, fine. Upload a few to Anchor. If you're doing this as a project that you are invested in, pay for it. You own your IP. You can move it easily. You cannot have ads or any sort of banners put in without your permission.
Correct.
Just like having, a facebook.com/your name or your own website. आप ही सोच लो. Like, if it's your career or your profession at stake, I would definitely say there's no question. You should have it, and you only have it if you pay for it. So
आपने 3-4 चीजें जो कही हैं, जो क्योंकि काफी लोग सवाल पूछ रहे हैं, मेरे ख्याल से सारे सवालों का जवाब तो दे ही दिया, पर उनका अगर एक समावेश निकालें, समरी निकालें, एक तो आपने शुरू में ये कहा कि पॉडकास्ट ऐसे टॉपिक पे बात करिए जो या तो जिसमें आपकी बहुत रुचि हो या जिसमें आपकी बहुत जानकारी हो, फिर कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. जैसा आपने बड़े अच्छे एग्जांपल्स दिए कि इतने अनकन्वेंशनल टॉपिक्स पर पॉडकास्ट होते हैं, बल्कि थोड़ा सा जिसको भी इंटरेस्ट है पॉडकास्ट में, थोड़ा रिसर्च करें तो आपको पता चलेगा कि दुनिया की जो सबसे पॉपुलर पॉडकास्ट हैं वो बड़े ही अनकन्वेंशनल से पॉडकास्ट हैं. अगर आपको लगता है कि आपका और आपके डॉग का ऐसा रिश्ता है कि आप उससे बातें करते हैं, तो माई कॉन्वर्सेशंस विथ माई डॉग कैन बी अ ब्यूटिफुल पॉडकास्ट. एब्सोल्युटली. तो कोई वो नहीं है. और दूसरी बात ये कि बेसिक से बेसिक ही सही, मगर ठीक ठाक इक्विपमेंट यूज कीजिए. कई लोग कह रहे हैं कि एंकर एफएम पर तो फोन पर भी अपलोड कर सकते हैं. बिल्कुल कर सकते हैं, पर आई थिंक जैसा आपने कहा छवि, आई थिंक यू वुड रेकमेंड, जैसा आपने कितनी सही बात कही कि देयर इज नो फ्री लंच. तो अगर आपको किसी चीज में अगर रुचि है तो थोड़ा सा आपको इन्वेस्ट तो करना पड़ेगा. तो चाहे आप माइक्रोफोन में इन्वेस्ट करें, और स्ट्रीमिंग सर्विस भी जो आप ले रहे हैं वो ऐसी सर्विस लें जिसमें कोई एक जिसका प्रीमियम आप ऑप्शन लें, ताकि आपके कंट्रोल में चीजें होती हैं. Would that be correct? Would that be a correct way to look at it?
I think so, yes. And once you pay for it, you can then put it out on everything. Abhi aap Spotify pe karoge, to get it now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever else is going to be on you. If I put it on a host where I'm paying, they already have those relationships. They make it so easy. I just click publish. So I upload my audio and I put a file for the photo. I put a description, and then I can schedule it. Hemang and I were talking ki you can stockpile 6 mahine ka ek hi sath upload kar lo. Every day you can release one. So release kar lo, and then they will go everywhere. They will go on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube. With the picture, it'll just go everywhere. So you get more benefits out of it, and of course you own your IP.
करेक्ट. एक सवाल ना छवि जो मेरे पास था, ये तो मैं एक्सीडेंटली आ गया क्योंकि हेमांग का नेटवर्क थोड़ा सा इज ऑन द ब्लिंक. एक सवाल जो मेरा था, व्हिच इज द बिगेस्ट पेन पॉइंट फॉर अ पॉडकास्टर फ्रॉम व्हाट आई हैव हर्ड इज द RSS feed.
So the RSS feed, actually, if you get it automatically once you host it, and that is what goes out to everybody's phones and apps. And it's a one-time setup. I don't think it's that much of a pain point because I think the hosts also realize it, the platforms. So उनके tutorials होते हैं, videos होते हैं, Q&A, उसका problem नहीं है.
Problem नहीं है उसका, okay.
नहीं, problem नहीं है. It's tedious. It's not
Tedious.
the fun part, right?
It's not
The fun part is creative.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, there's no elegant, fast way. So Anchor Pay, of course, you can record and you can publish. But listen, it's just like TikTok versus a movie.
Correct.
If you are happy to do essay, fun, unpolished, mufat, gone out, no problem. More power to you. But if you are going to actually put a polished product out, like a TV commercial or a documentary, it takes editing. You don't just get everything in the first take. You are voice artists. How many of you are one-take wonders? Maybe on a good day, right? But
Correct.
even then, somebody is editing it. Somebody is making sure that they stitch your voice together, taking out the flubs, taking out the kharash and the coughs and the stumbles. You must do that. You're putting yourself out for the world, for yourself and for your listener. Respect your listener. They don't want to listen to nonsense. I am saying that nicely.
Chhavi, Hira Mehta is a dear friend. She's also a podcaster. In fact, her podcast has gone on to Spotify now. She wants
Okay.
to ask what kind of monies are needed to have your own domain.
Oh, you can get a domain for, I don't know, GoDaddy is constantly having sales and stuff. That's like
Domain and some server space,
600
and you're good to
rupees.
go. And you're good to go.
Right. And server space will cost you. But here's my pro tip, which I share in my workshops. You need to pay about $12 US dollars a month for the months when you're actively uploading, right? So say you got a season. Let's use the TV model. You're going to make one season and you're going to make 12 episodes. Okay, once a week for 3 months. Okay? You need to have good hosting plan for 3 months. Uske baad, you just need to keep the audio there. You're not needing so much bandwidth or time. So you can go from the $12 a month plan to the $5 a month plan. But it's a recurring cost. I will not lie to you. To keep it alive, I pay. I have old podcasts that I just have out there. We made the first podcast on love, sex, and dating. I'm slightly embarrassed by it now because 3-4 years have gone by and I don't know if I would do it the same way. But people are still listening. I get people who are listening. I don't even talk about it anymore. And so I think if somebody's benefiting from it, I'll pay $5 a month and just leave it there. And it's there. That's
Correct. तो ये तो हो गई खर्चे की बात. हेमांग ने शुरू से हेमांग बहुत उत्सुक थे जानने के लिए कि पैसा बनाया कैसे जाए. हाँ हेमांग,
मेरे को कोई पैसे दे दे, मैं ले लूंगी खुशी खुशी. Okay. So monetization. Number 1.
Yes, very.
Self-funded.
Yes.
Hemang, Chhavi.
Exactly. I totally agree with that. I totally buy that because most misconceptions here is that everybody thinks podcasting shuru kar di and the money will start flowing.
How nice
and
that
it
would
is
be.
a very naive. How nice that would be.
Optimistic.
But then again,
Yeah.
that's not how it works. So we wanted from
Okay. So if you're not
so tell us more on that front so that people don't have.
Okay. So the real options, if you want to make money, are 1, to get a sponsor. And there are 2 ways you can do that. You can either get a sponsor per episode. I'll give you an example. There is a podcast called Paisa Vaisa. And for some episodes, they get different podcast sponsors. So Paytm sponsored one episode because it was about e-wallets. Some bank sponsored one. They get different platforms sponsor different episodes. Or you can get a series sponsor for your whole season. So for example, if now these are not exciting topics, but unfortunately these are the places that have money. If you're doing one on mutual funds, Aditya Birla Mutual Funds presents. It's like the Miss India contest became Femina Videocon Pantaloons Miss India. If you can pull that off, great. You'll have to do some sales and marketing along with your content creation. I'm really bad at that. I have no sponsors. Then option number 3 is ads. So self-funded, sponsors, ads. you don't have to go look for ads. You can, and you can put space in your podcast for ads. Now, if, for example, India Voice Fest wanted to advertise on my podcast, I'd say, okay, 30 seconds or 1 minute, whatever, I will put an ad in. Or better yet, you can ask for your host to get you ads. So Spotify does that, for example. But what they don't tell you, and other places, even the host that you pay for, you have to reach a threshold, very high listens, before you qualify for ads. If you're only making 6 episodes, you're never going to hit that number. So it's a little bit of a free may come, you're sort of promised you'll reach this target and then we'll give you bonus, and then your contract is only expired. So if you're doing 36,000 episodes, you'll get there faster than if you're doing only 6. So that's the fine print. And the next way to do it is to pitch a network. So whether it's IVM or Spotify or Audible or Ghana or Saban. But here's the thing. They get a lot of pitches. You have to be really... it's a double-edged sword. These guys have become the radio of podcasts, which means that you have to be cool, you have to be unique, but you have to make the money, which means you have to be attractive to the lowest common denominator. So if you're a celebrity, awesome. If you are not a celebrity, you have to crack that formula to be so popular that you will give them an ROI. Fiction podcast, I'm telling you, come up with a good story idea or hook up with a studio that's producing a fiction podcast with many episodes and climb on that bandwagon. Voice artists, ye hai, future. And last of all, it's actually becoming like full circle. Self-funded was number 1. Oh, was I muted? What happened? So crowdfunding is your last option, in which you say, bhai, please, let's support Karo. And you set up a page on Patreon or different platforms like that. And you say, yeah, I've made this wonderful podcast. So if you want more, or I'm very poor and please help me. Or you do something like, if you're really dedicated and have time, you set up bonuses. Ki aap itne paise do mujhe har mahine, and this is picking up in India. People are doing this. So here's your here's your weekly episode. But if you want a extra coaching on flying a magic carpet, you have to be a paid member to have access to that bonus content. And there's one person in India who's actually making it work, and that's Amit Verma with the Seen and Unseen. So
Amit Verma, I am his devotee. I'm a devotee of his Seen and the Unseen. I am mad about that podcast, guys. If you haven't, you should go and check it out. And when you talk about celebrity, he's a pioneer. He's a pioneer. If you talk about celebrity podcasts, No Filter Neha has been quite popular of late, last few years. I think that has been one consistent podcast, 5 seasons now, 50 episodes, and but again, it's not really a massy thing. So, but like you were saying, that podcast can be anything. It can be for the masses, for the classes, for anyone, for children, for pets. Your imagination is the only limit that you set for yourself. So amazing. So I think somebody asked just one little question is, अरे भाई अमित वेरा नहीं है, अमित वर्मा है मेरी जान. निरंजन शर्मा जी बोल रहे, who is अमित वेरा? वेरा, not वेरा, अमित वर्मा. इन्होंने कहा है कि आपने कहा था कि $12 जो पर मंथ आप डोमेन का पे करते हैं, किसने पूछा है वो कहाँ पे करते हैं और क्या है exactly?
I use because I also produce for different clients. So we use Libsyn, which is LIBSYN, Liberated Syndication, Libsyn.
Okay, Libsyn.
I pay $12. There's also Blueberry. There's so many. Hemang, what do you put it on? Headphone.
It's a headphone, but at the same time, it's a very India platform. What you're talking about is the international platform. Headphone caters to the Indian audiences. So we have all the languages there as well. So
Right.
that
And
definitely
then, so headphone is one, and you can check out the pricing. You just look for hosting platform comparison, and you'll find it. And once you sign up, you've done your diligence on which platform is better, how much it costs, and all what you need. You just upload your audio, and you upload your image, and you put in your show descriptions, and then you schedule it for release. And then you have to do a one-time setup कि कहाँ distribute करना है. So Google, Spotify, Apple, ये सब one time, and it'll take you a few days. Or फिर you publish, and it'll go live, or you schedule it. Yes, it is online school. You should see what my workshops are like, Akshay.
exactly. The workshop that you conduct and you train is something we all need to know about at the same time. So
And you get homework in my workshops, man.
Let me
awesome.
put that
na?
up, guys. Chhavi conducts regular workshops on podcasting, and you can look her up. I think we have put out her web URL on the chat, sonolog.in, if I'm not wrong,
.com.
and .com, and you can look her up on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and you can connect with her, stay connected, follow her on social media. I'm sure she will put out updates about her forthcoming workshops. So so this session was probably a trailer for and the entire film will probably come in the workshop that you will need to register for, because I mean, finally, it's just a 1 hour long session, and podcasting, understanding the A to Z of podcasting is going to take a little more than that.
No doubt.
But amazing. So, guys, yes.
All the questions here. We have addressed all the questions here. You've taken us from the A to Z. We've touched every aspect per se when it comes to conceptualization, creating a bank, and the technical aspect at the same time. But there was one thing that you had suggested while we were in the discussion that has been missed. So we would like to hear that. You're just raising a hand for the same, I guess.
Oh no, I have no idea what we talked about. I was just saying the Z could be for zing. Have zing in your podcast.
Okay. Awesome. So I guess this was an awesome A to Z thing. And एक question रह गया था कि is age a condition here, when it comes to starting podcasts? But again, as the head goes, no. We all agree to this, and I think Darpan sir had also answered the question of the same with voicing as well.
बल्कि मैं तो एक स्टेप आगे जाऊंगा, और मैं तो थोड़ा सा इन लोगों के साथ मेरा रिश्ता ऐसा है इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट फैमिली मेंबर्स के साथ कि मैं थोड़ा सा इनके साथ मजाक भी कर लेता हूँ, कान भी मरोड़ लेता हूँ, डांट भी देता हूँ, और इनको पता है कि ऐसा ही है. तो मैं तो ये कहूंगा कि अगर आप इतनी बार सवाल पूछोगे कि उम्र क्या होनी चाहिए, भाई उतने टाइम में तो उम्र निकल जाएगी. तो सवालों के घेरे में मत फंसो. अगर आपके पास पॉडकास्ट का कोई आइडिया है, अगर आपके पास जेब में पैसे नहीं है, कोई बात नहीं, आप शुरू में फ्री प्लेटफॉर्म पे शुरू कर लो. इट्स एब्सोल्युटली ऑल राइट. टेक बेबी स्टेप्स, और आगे जाकर जब आपको लगने लगे, यू फील मोर कंफर्टेबल, और आपको लगने लगे कि आई हैव समथिंग टू टेल द वर्ल्ड व्हिच द वर्ल्ड प्रोबेबली विल बी इंटरेस्टेड इन लिसनिंग टू, तो फिर आप अच्छे से invest resources, and only if you invest resources will you set up a sustainable model in podcasting. So great.
I think there was one question about marketing, and I can try to quickly address that.
Please.
So marketing in India is still growing. In fact,
conclude this session.
In India, it would be very nice if any of you is like a marketing minded, and you want to set up like a agency and represent all of the podcasters and go get us advertising. Please do it. But it's a little hard. So you have to sort of rely on your own networks and the networks of your guests and other places. So use social media. You could put ads on other networks or exchange ad promos. It can be unpaid. So if Darpan puts a promo on my podcast, I put a promo on Hemang's podcast, and then Hemang puts one, we can swap them, and it'll be free, but each of us is reaching a different audience. And that's one way of marketing. And ask your guests to publicize it, ask your friends. And here's a guerrilla tactic. When you go to shadis, when COVID is gone and you're back to meeting people, and they say, what do? Take the phone, Right now, like you can't meet them and you have to sanitize everything. But later, take the phone and then say, here's your app, or install the app, and then say, here's my podcast, and you subscribe to it.
या फिर आप एक फंड शुरू करो, जैसे पीएम पॉडकास्ट मार्केटिंग फंड. पीएम के आगे नहीं बोलूंगा मैं. मेरा पॉडकास्ट फंड.
Yes, MP fund.
Lovely guys. We could go on and on, but एक तो वक्त की थोड़ी पाबंदी है क्योंकि 4 मिनट में हमारा अगला सेशन शुरू हो रहा है, which is an amazing stand-up act by Sanjay Kenny, who is a leading stand-up comic and voice artist. एक तो वो शुरू हो रहा है. So I think we will conclude this. I think on behalf of all of us, Chhavi, a big thank you to you. Hemang, thank you to you too for navigating this session so beautifully. वो end में इंटरनेट के चक्कर में मैंने दखल दे दी, उसके लिए माफी चाहूंगा. पर otherwise it was an absolutely lovely session, Chhavi. And once again, thank you for giving us your time, and more than time, giving us such amazing insights into podcasting. I hope in the coming time, many of these people who are here, if some of them are keenly interested, they will connect with you and probably take it further with your guidance.
Anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye, Hemang. Guys, ये तो मजा आ गया. थोड़ा सा इंटरनेट का चक्कर रहा. आई थिंक अभिषेक बच्चन और छवि सचदेव में एक चीज कॉमन ये है कि दोनों के ही सेशन के दौरान इंटरनेट ने थोड़ा सा अड़ंगा मचाया. बट अदरवाइज दैट वाज अ वेरी बैड जोक दो. So bad, na? Yeah, my team is telling me that was very bad. चलिए आगे बढ़ते हैं. अगला सेशन संजय केनी के साथ है, मगर उसके पहले एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट फीचर है जो हमने शुरू किया है इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट पर. तो संजय केनी का जो सेशन है वो 5-7 मिनट बाद होगा, अगली स्ट्रीम में होगा. ये स्ट्रीम जब खत्म हो जाएगी उसके बाद आपको संजय केनी के सेशन की स्ट्रीम ज्वाइन करनी होगी. करिएगा जरूर. फिलहाल हमने इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट पर एक बहुत प्यारा फीचर प्रेजेंट किया है, शुरू किया है, जिसका नाम है मेरी आवाज ही पहचान है. कितना प्यारा नाम है. दरअसल देखिए, इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट का संकल्प शुरू से यही रहा है कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा टैलेंटेड वॉइस आर्टिस्ट्स, वॉइस इंडस्ट्री प्रोफेशनल्स को इस मंच के द्वारा पूरी दुनिया के सामने पेश किया जाए. उनके काम को, उनके ख्याल को, उनके बारे में उनको एक चेहरा दिया जाए. इसी कोशिश में एक कदम है मेरी आवाज ही पहचान है, जिसमें हमने कुछ बहुत अकम्प्लिश्ड आर्टिस्ट्स के वीडियो इंटरव्यूज लिए हैं. छोटे छोटे 5-5, 4-4 मिनट के वीडियो इंटरव्यूज हैं जिनमें वो अपनी कहानी आपके सामने पेश करते हैं. सो दिस इज एन इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट एक्सक्लूसिव. मेरी आवाज ही पहचान है. और आज की पहली जो हमारी पर्सनैलिटी है जो इस वीडियो में फीचर कर रही हैं, उनका नाम है मनिनी डे. मनिनी एक बहुत ही जाना पहचाना चेहरा है टेलीविजन पर एक्टिंग में, और उसके साथ ही बहुत ही प्रख्यात वॉइस आर्टिस्ट हैं, ट्रेनर हैं, हीलर हैं, और इसी के साथ मोटिवेटर भी हैं. और मनिनी मेरी आवाज ही पहचान है में हमारी पहली वॉइस पर्सनैलिटी है. आइए उनसे मिलते हैं.
हाय, मेरी आवाज ही मेरी पहचान है. well, मेरे केस में मेरा चेहरा भी मेरी पहचान है. नमस्कार, मेरा नाम है मानिनी डे और मैं एक एक्टर होने के साथ साथ एक वॉइस एक्टर भी हूँ. well, एज अ वॉइस एक्टर बहुत सारे इंटरेस्टिंग प्रोजेक्ट्स मैंने किए हैं, लेकिन क्वीन ऑफ काकथवे वाज वन प्रोजेक्ट विच आई विल रिमेंबर फॉर द रेस्ट ऑफ माई लाइफ, क्योंकि उसमें मेरी वॉइस क्वालिटी को बहुत ग्रेनी बनाना था, बहुत ही रस्टिक और अर्दी बनाना था, और नेचुरली मेरी आवाज बहुत ही सोफिस्टिकेटेड और क्लासी और यू नो विद द क्लिप्ड एक्सेंट है. तो आई हैड टू वर्क वेरी हार्ड एंड आई लव्ड द रिजल्ट्स ऑफ इट. आई थिंक इट वाज फैंटास्टिक. Well, the secret to my success is going in like water into a studio. जिस तरह का किरदार है मैं बिल्कुल अपने आप को वैसे ही ढाल लेती हूँ. आई लिसन टू द वॉइस क्वालिटी, आई लुक एट द बॉडी लैंग्वेज. मैं एक थेरेपिस्ट हूँ तो मेरे लिए बहुत मदद मिलती है. एक एक्टर हूँ, उससे भी बहुत फर्क पड़ता है. इसके अलावा मैं अपने डबिंग डायरेक्टर्स की हर बात को बड़े ध्यान से सुनती हूँ. मैं अपने ऊपर काम करती हूँ. मैं बार बार एक टेक को ठीक करती हूँ टिल आई एम नॉट हैप्पी, टिल दे आर नॉट हैप्पी. सो प्लीज हैव पेशेंस, हैव लॉट ऑफ ह्यूमिलिटी. Be willing to learn, and the most important thing is that you should become the character. Uska lihaaf apne upar old lena. So, who inspires me in the voice industry? I think the topmost name for me would be Ninad, because I remember meeting him through a friend of mine, and I was very fascinated that he's a voice artist. Tab tak mujhe nahi pata tha, honestly. What a gifted person. What a gifted person. Mona Shetty, my mentor. Her mom was my mentor. Mona is somebody who's constantly evolving, working on her craft. बड़ा मजा आता है मुझे उनके साथ काम करने में. इसके अलावा मुझे लगता है कि बहुत से ऐसे लोग हैं जिनसे शायद मेरी मुलाकात हुई है लेकिन नाम मैं नहीं जानती हूँ. और आवाजों में तो बहुत सारी आवाजें हैं. रेखा जी की आवाज इतनी खूबसूरत है. मुझे रानी मुखर्जी की आवाज बहुत पसंद है. काजोल की आवाज थोड़ी खरखरी सी, थोड़ी सी नॉटी, और थोड़े जिसमें यू नो there's this आई डोंट नो, कशिश बोल लीजिए, या एक ऐसा वो होता है कि वो आपको अपनी तरफ खींच लेते हैं. आई थिंक हर स्ट्रीम को सेलिब्रेट करने के लिए कोई ना कोई प्लेटफॉर्म बहुत जरूरी है. फिल्म्स को सेलिब्रेट करने के लिए आपके पास फिल्म फेयर है और बहुत से अवार्ड्स हैं. सो इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट इज दैट वॉइस व्हिच एक्चुअली गेट्स ऑल द वॉइस आर्टिस्ट टुगेदर अंडर वन अम्ब्रेला एंड सेलिब्रेट्स देयर टैलेंट. ऑल्सो लेट्स पीपल नो कि लोगों की आवाज कितनी पावरफुल सिग्नेचर होता है. जैसे कहते हैं मेरी आवाज मेरी पहचान है. तो मुझे लगता है कि इन ब्यूटीफुल आर्टिस्ट को सेलिब्रेट करना बहुत जरूरी है, जिनकी शक्लें शायद आपको ना पता हो लेकिन उनकी आवाजों से आप वाबस्ता हैं और उनकी आवाज से आपको मोहब्बत है. मुझे कई बार लोग बोलते हैं कि आप ये कैसे करती हैं. मैं सच बताऊं, मुझे नहीं पता मैं कैसे करती हूँ. मुझे सिर्फ इतना पता है कि the divine channels through you and you just do your job. So only two things I've learned. पानी की तरह स्टूडियो के अंदर जाओ, मस्ती करो और अपना बेस्ट पे कराओ without thinking about the outcome. And that's it.
That was Manini Day, our first voice personality in मेरी आवाज ही पहचान है. Leading voice artist, therapist and healer and of course actor. बहुत प्यारी बातें की मनीनी ने. और चलिए अब आगे बढ़ते हैं, इस स्ट्रीम को खत्म करते हैं और सीधे लपक के जाते हैं हमारे अगले लाइव सेशन में, जहां पर संजय केनी आपका वेट कर रहे हैं. संजय इंडस्ट्री वेटरन, लीडिंग अवार्ड विनिंग वॉइस आर्टिस्ट और अ स्टैंड अप कॉमिक ऑफ अमेजिंग रेप्यूटेशन. संजय केनी के साथ सिट डाउन एंड लाफ इन जस्ट अ मिनट. कहीं मत जाइएगा, लौट कर आइए इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट के यूट्यूब चैनल और इंडिया वॉइस फेस्ट के फेसबुक पेज पर इन जस्ट अ मिनट.